Not trying to get this copyright strike before we even start the video. Alright, let's talk about some tips for driving front-wheel drive in the snow. Now, I had another video scheduled for today, and it's 2:45 in the afternoon, so if you're seeing this, it means I successfully filmed, edited, and uploaded a video in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Which is not bad, but it snowed today, so I figured we'd talk about some tips for driving front-wheel drive in the snow. A lot of people ask me, is the GTI good in the snow? If you're gonna ask that, you should go watch this video. Now, the first two tips that I have are generic tips for everybody. 1, get snow tires. And 2, please clean the snow off the top of your car. I know that sometimes when you have like an SUV with roof racks or whatever, it's difficult. If you have a small front-wheel drive car, you literally have no excuse for having snow on the roof of your car. All it does is build up and then it blinds the driver behind you. So be considerate, clean the snow off the roof of your car, and get some snow tires to keep you safe. Now, once you put snow tires on your car and you have a clean roof, you can use the rest of these tips for helping you drive front-wheel drive in the snow. Driving in the snow is really kind of similar to driving in the dry, only there's a lot less friction. So that means your car is gonna react in a similar, if not the exact same way that it would when it loses grip in the dry, but it's gonna do it at a much lower speed and at much lower turning angles than it would in the dry. Now that's pretty obvious, but it's just something to think about. If you've, auto-crossed your car or something like that, you know how your car reacts at the limit. In the same way, and I've said this before in videos, when you learn how your car reacts in snow, you can then apply that to other driving situations, even when there might not be snow on the ground. So the first big mistake I think people make when they're driving front-wheel drive in the snow is accelerating in turns. Now, this isn't something that you should do with front-wheel drive anyway, because understeer and that stuff, but it's especially bad in the snow because sometimes that acceleration plus the turning motion is gonna overwhelm the amount of friction that the tires can give you, and that's gonna cause you to really understeer and go in a straight line. So if I turn like this, I have grip back and forth, but if I floor it and the tires are spinning and then I try to turn back and forth, it's not gonna turn. It's just gonna keep going in a straight line because I've used up all the friction that the tires have. It might turn a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. Now I'm turning. If I get on the gas, yep, there we go. That leads me into my second tip for driving front-wheel drive in the snow. When you do lose traction in a turn or lose grip and the front end starts to push, instinct tells you, oh, I'll just add more steering input. Just turn the wheel harder and that'll make the car turn more. Well, if you think about it, that's actually making it even harder for the car to come back to that limit of friction that you're at, because instead of asking it to turn this much, you're now asking it to turn that much, and the car is just gonna keep going in a straight line. So if you start to lose traction while you're turning, 1, come off the gas, and 2, make sure you're not putting in a ton of extra steering input, because that's not gonna help anything. That's actually gonna make it worse. Also, sometimes the handbrake can be your friend. If you're going slow and your car starts to understeer around a turn, a lot of the times what you can do is give it a little yank of the handbrake, just quick up, down, and that's gonna lock the rear tires and start the rear of the car rotating, which makes it much easier for the car to make the turn. So if I'm making a slow right-hand turn, let's say I'm coming from a stoplight onto a road that's at a right angle to that, a lot of times the car is gonna push just because I'm turning so tightly. So I'll give it a little yank of the handbrake, and that'll start the car rotating around. Now, you don't want to overdo it or you're gonna end up hitting cars in the other lane, but when done right, and you can practice in a parking lot, when done right, if you can't get enough grip to make the turn, a little dab of the handbrake and a little bit of opposite lock and you'll be golden. That's not something I would recommend trying right away. I would recommend going to a parking lot, playing around with it when you're doing tight turns. Now, my final piece of advice, and again, this is more of a generic thing than a front-wheel drive thing, but it's don't be afraid to get into the anti-lock brakes. Anti-lock, anti-lock, whatever you want to call them. Don't be afraid to use them. The car has them for a reason. The whole point of the car having them is so you can steer and stop in situations that you would otherwise really have to focus hard on braking in. And it makes kind of a funny noise when it kicks in. It makes like a really weird, like rattly, crunchy noise. I don't know how to describe it. I'll show you what I mean. I doubt you can hear it, but let's see. Hang on. Find a little patch of snow up here. And when I get into anti-lock brakes, I don't know if you can hear that crunching noise, but it makes a really weird noise, but it's also really doing its job, and it's doing its job better than you could do without anti-lock brakes, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to say anti-lock for the rest of the video. If that bothers you, leave a comment below. it's not something that really comes natural after driving 8 months of the year on clear roads. Now, even if you are used to driving on the snow, a lot of us can still use tips and tricks to make sure we're getting better. I still sometimes, when I start to slide, I still find myself putting in extra steering input, and I have to tell myself, okay, let it back out a little bit, let it back out, it'll be okay. I hope those made sense. If you have any questions or tips, leave them in the comments below. Take it easy, go out there and spread some positivity, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Do a burnout. We actually kind of hooked there. All right, here's where we can do a barn out. See you in the next video.